Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're putting together your ultimate visual study guide for understanding the fascinating mechanics of human satisfaction, all through the lens of microeconomics. Have you ever wondered why that very first bite of your favorite meal tastes literally heavenly, but by the 10th bite, it just feels kind of ordinary? Well, economists have actually quantified that exact feeling. So let's dive right in and unpack exactly how we measure, map, and predict human desire.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're covering the definition of satisfaction, how we measure the immeasurable, total versus marginal utility, the phases of consumption, and finally, the economic laboratory. Let's get going.
Starting with Section 1, Defining Human Satisfaction. Before we can even think about drawing graphs or doing any math, we have to establish an absolute baseline. What exactly do economists mean when they throw around the word satisfaction?
Well, Professor Hobson really hit the nail on the head with this foundational quote. He says, utility is the ability of a good to satisfy a want. It sounds incredibly simple, right? But it's actually profound. We aren't talking about some abstract, mystical feeling here. We are talking about a specific capability that a commodity possesses, the precise moment it meets a human desire.
Which brings us to the first major definition for our study guide. Utility is the quantifiable power of a commodity to satisfy human desire. And I really want you to focus on that word quantifiable. Economists don't just care that you like something, they want to know exactly how much you like it, and they're going to slap a concrete number on that power.
But hey, quick heads up, this is a classic trap for beginners. It's so crucial to remember that this whole concept of utility is entirely subjective. It changes from person to person, and it has absolutely nothing to do with objective health benefits or practical usefulness. Think about it, a cigarette possesses high utility for a smoker because it satisfies a craving, even though we all know it's objectively harmful. Or a greasy fast food burger might offer way more immediate utility to a starving person than a super healthy salad. Utility is strictly about desire, not necessarily what's good for you.
Moving on to Section 2, Measuring the Immeasurable. So we know utility is the satisfaction of a desire, but now we face a massive, seemingly impossible problem. How on earth do we actually measure something so deeply personal, abstract, and subjective?
Historically, economists basically split into two distinct camps to solve this puzzle. Over on one side, pioneered by J.R. Hicks, you have ordinal utility. This school argues that you can really only rank your preferences. Saying things like, I prefer pizza first, a burger second, and a salad third. But on the other side, pioneered by Alfred Marshall, we have cardinal utility. And this approach boldly claims, no, we can actually assign exact concrete numerical values to our satisfaction. Literally saying, I get exactly 12 units of happiness from this pizza. For our study guide today, we're going to be using Marshall's cardinal utility approach.
So how does that math actually work? Well, in cardinal utility, we start with this theoretical unit of measurement called a util. Just imagine a floating cloud of satisfaction. But obviously, a util means something totally different to me than it does to you. So Alfred Marshall gave us a genius conversion. He took that abstract util and transitioned it into concrete monetary terms. We just assume that one util equals exactly $1. Boom! This creates a frictionless comparison, meaning we're now measuring utility strictly in terms of the actual price a consumer is willing to pay.
Okay, Section 3, Total versus Marginal Utility. Let's step out of the theory for a second and ground all this math with a real-world example that we're going to use for the rest of this explainer. We're going to talk about eating ice cream.
The very first core metric you need to memorize is total utility, or TU. Total utility simply tracks your cumulative satisfaction as you continuously consume multiple units of a good. In our case, multiple ice cream cones. It's the big picture, the total sum of your happiness.
Let's look at the numbers. Say you eat your very first ice cream cone. It is absolutely amazing, and you'd gladly pay $20 for that feeling, so it gives you 20 utils. Then you eat a second cone. It's still really good, but you're getting a little bit full, so it only gives you 16 utils. Your total utility is just the sum of the two. 20 plus 16 equals 36 utils of total satisfaction. Easy enough, right? But what if we just want to know the value of that next specific cone, completely by itself? We don't care about the total accumulation, we only care about the addition. That brings us to our second core metric, and honestly, the star of our show today, marginal utility, or MU. Marginal utility totally isolates the value of one more. The absolute crucial point here is finding the difference between your totals. Imagine you've already eaten 2 cones, and your total utility is sitting at 36 utils. You decide, hey, I'm going to eat a third cone, and your new total utility jumps up to 46 utils. To find the marginal utility of just that third cone, you look at the rate of change. 46 minus 36 leaves us with 10 utils. That third cone, standing all on its own, was worth exactly 10 utils of satisfaction.
Section 4. The phases of consumption. So what happens as you keep going? As you continuously eat more and more ice cream, cone 4, cone 5, cone 6, your satisfaction levels don't just stay static. They actually change dynamically across 3 very distinct phases. Let's map them out.
When we track someone eating up to 6 ice cream cones in the schedule, a totally fascinating relationship emerges. Look at how total utility climbs up to a peak of 50, but then actually starts to fall. Meanwhile, notice how the marginal utility drops continuously with every single cone you eat, eventually plunging right down into the negatives.
See how that line starts high for the first cone and then just steadily dives downward? This continuous, perfectly predictable drop is defined by a fundamental economic principle called Gauss's first law. It states the incredibly simple fact that as we consume more and more units of a commodity, the utility derived from each successive unit goes on decreasing. The golden rule here is that human desire for any specific commodity is never infinite. Literally, every single additional bite pushes you closer to being full.
In fact, we can map this entire eating experience into 3 specific steps. First up is phase 1, accumulation, where you're actively gaining satisfaction. Second is phase 2, the point of satiety, where you hit a literal wall of perfect fullness. And finally, phase 3, disutility, where you cross over into actually making yourself miserable by forcing down more food.
When we map these 3 phases onto our curves, the story becomes crystal clear. In phase 1, on the left, marginal utility is positive, so the total utility curve is climbing upwards, though notice it's climbing at a slower and slower rate. In phase 2, right in the middle, you reach maximum satisfaction. Total utility peaks, completely flat at the very top of the hill. And then in phase 3 on the right, you've officially overconsumed. You're feeling sick from way too much ice cream. The marginal utility drops into the negatives, pulling your total utility actively downward.
Listen, if you take away just one single thing from this entire explainer, let it be this. The most critical number on that entire graph is 0. Why? Because the exact moment your marginal utility hits 0, you are perfectly full. You are 100% satiated. You want absolutely no more ice cream. It is the exact tipping point between pleasure and pain.
Okay, onto our final section, Section 5, the economic laboratory. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Real life doesn't always graph out into these perfect, smooth, predictable curves. And you know what? You're absolutely right. For this ice cream model to actually work mathematically, economists have to rely on some very strict, controlled laboratory conditions.
To make this law completely bulletproof, economists assume 8 rigid rules. They basically pretend everything else in the world remains perfectly constant, from the quality of the ice cream and the continuous timing of your eating, all the way down to your personal income and the value of a dollar.
Just think about it practically. Think about the timing of consumption. If you eat 1 ice cream cone on Monday and your second cone on Friday, your utility isn't going to diminish, your hunger completely reset. Or think about homogeneous quality. If your first cone is just plain, boring vanilla, but your second cone is a massive premium chocolate sundae, well, your marginal utility might actually go up, totally breaking the law. If even one of these external rules breaks, the entire predictive model just falls apart.
And there you have it. That wraps up our ultimate study guide. We've taken the incredibly abstract philosophical concept of human desire and shown exactly how it can be systematically measured, mapped, graphed, and predicted. And we did it all using the power of microeconomics and the law of diminishing marginal utility. But before we go, I want to leave you the fascinating question to consider as you step outside of this perfectly controlled economic laboratory. Look at your own daily life, whether you're buying clothes, endlessly scrolling social media, or eating your favorite food. Does the relentless pursuit of one more actually bring you true satisfaction? Or, as Gauss's first law warns us, are you just blindly driving yourself straight towards inevitable disutility? Definitely something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.